This work's called Our Voices Are Muted, as though we were speaking through felt. The work is some acrylic mirrored panels. Attached to those are a series of pipes. Each pipe is lined with a material called electroluminescent paneling with some polyacrylic lighting gels on top of that, so that if you're moving around the work and choose to look into any of those pipes, you get a very kind of slight glimpse at a messy infinity through the pipe, down the pipes and across to the mirror. In addition to that, the electroluminescence itself emits this very subtle but quite piercing buzzing sound. And then in addition to this, I've installed a triphonic sound system. I've worked with a sound designer called Nick Wilsden, and so he's taken some of those tones from the electroluminescent panels and reinterpreted them so that there's this kind of quite piercing electronic but also quite dissonant and I think beautiful sound coming out of the work as well. The work on the whole, if you have a look at it, it just gives you the impression of being a mad scramble at something, trying to get to something. And I think one of the key ideas that I deal with in all of my work is, an attempt to use materials to express our need to connect. And I'm very much kind of using contemporary materials and materials of the computer age to do this. The title, Our Voices Are Muted, as if we are speaking through felt, is actually a line I've pulled from a William S. Burroughs novel. And for me, it comes back to this idea of wanting to connect with people. It reminds me almost of, those times where you go out dancing and it's like 4 a.m. and suddenly, you're leaving with your friends and the noise just like shuts down, and instead you're kind of outside and it's a frosty morning and the sound's totally muted and you're in this like new connective environment with people, and it's just something like just a shift, and there's this sense of shared passage and intimacy with people. I would argue that, while I think a lot of people look at my work and want to sort of put me in the new media pile or the media art pile, I almost think that I'm just more interested in looking at the actual materials of computers and electronics in a way probably not dissimilar to Art Povera artists engaged with their materials, almost 50 years ago or more. And it is this kind of messy collision between all the dreams and hopes that we imbue into, our computer systems and our data and this idea of this ethereal cloud, but then, the awkward physicality of server farms and back-end electronics and messy cabling and overheating computers and etc.
So it's got the materiality in it, but it's also got a certain existentialism or something. Maybe that's me that's a loaded word, but there is a certain kind of infinite potential. But it's made problematic by, I don't know, the materials or something.
I think something that I always feel comfortable that I put into my work anyway. But it's a sense of lost romance, or it's a sense again of this clumsiness between the materials and this kind of pristine, beautiful thing that we're kind of ebbing or pushing towards, trying to fabricate towards the end of that. I think in terms of sensibility anyway, I definitely consider myself to be a romantic artist, more so than I would consider myself to be a new media artist. But it all comes back to, I think, you're just mentioning that, this idea of infinity or this idea of existentialism, but it all still always comes back to the materials. And I think even, conceptual art, art can never escape the materials that make it. And all that you can hope for is that, your ultimate end goal, I think, as a sculptor or as an installation artist, is to be able to imbue in these materials a sense of, a collective sense of the weight of history.
How does this build on the, I would say, cinematic romance of the Bath works, which we've seen before?
Yeah, well, I think in all, this, this desire for immersion, which is why we seek out art, I think, across all of the arts, is something that I've always engaged in, and providing people with a space where they can come and meditate upon or contemplate your work, I think has always been really important. Ebb, which is one of my previous installations that involved an acrylic tank filled with water and mist with video projections of 9 figures kind of each getting into a bath of paint on top of each other and disappearing under the surface, I think directly deals with that as well, in a way that can be construed as this kind of positive desire towards like a singularity theory, but it could also be seen as incredibly fatalistic and this idea of a desire to dissolve into nothing. I think one of the main characteristics of my work, and something that will inherently always be there, is that it's undeniably a mess, because I think we're all a mess in so many ways, you know. And I am not proposing innovation in any sincere way, which is, I think, a lot of works that engage with technology do. I'm really just trying to reveal kind of all of our, probably not really articulated fetishizations of it. You know, if you think about even just other art historical references that really, you know, appeal to me, it's like, you know, potential, it's like romantic painting, it's, you know, early Renaissance religious work. But a lot of these works that were maybe, you know, excessive or, I don't know, particularly dogmatic in certain ways, or dealt with this idea of reining in chaos. Yeah, they're just as much, I think, influences on sort of me and this practice.
Do you feel a desire to rein in chaos?
Story of my life, right? It's like entropy. It's like I'm more relaxed with letting things get out of hand, I think. You know, there's that line, you know, one line in you know, Deleuze and Guattari's Capitalism and Schizophrenia, where they talk about of the refrain and use this metaphor of a girl just singing to herself in the dark. And the idea is that in the great expanse of space, if you were just singing this one song to yourself, that's enough for you to sort of follow your own road. And sometimes I feel, and particularly with these works, it's even reflected that, you know, yeah, we just kind of stick to our single songs, and chaos kind of, well, things can destruct around you. Maybe slightly off topic then again. But anyway, yeah.